platform, which brings venture capital opportunities to accredited investors worldwide. A lot of what I'm going to say today is going to sound very obvious, but sometimes it's important to talk about the obvious. It can be misunderstood and disregarded. A lot of people are newbies, they don't really get it. A lot of entrepreneurs are very good at what they do, but not good at talking about what they do. It's important to review the fundamentals, and we're talking about understanding what you do and understanding how to talk about it. So in that regard, I want to take a look at a couple of videos.
My name is Jacob Wilkerson. I'm CEO and founder of Aware, and our product is called Cufflink. 3 things I want to note about our team. The first one is that we were first movers on the iPhone, and we saw a huge benefit from this. So now we are trying to be first movers on the Apple Watch. The second one is that our prior company, OpenFaint, grew to 75 million users in 3 years before it was acquired for $104 million. The third one is that we have been working the last 18 months on solving a single problem: how to make communication better on your smartwatch.
Does anybody know what his company does? He talked a lot about features of the company and how much money they make, and something about a smartwatch, but we don't actually know what he does. About halfway through his talk, he finally gets to it. There's another example.
Thank you. So, Jump makes a shared electric bike for short point-to-point trips in cities. We were actually the first company to create dockless bike share technology.
Okay, I think he makes, does electric bike sharing. Pretty clear. He did it under 16 seconds. I'm not saying there's a direct connection, but a few months later, Jump was bought by Uber for $200 million. The other company, it's been 3 years, you can search the internet, you can't find anything. So it's important to be able to articulate what it is that you do. What does your company do? To do that, you need to build a brand identity. So what does that mean? A brand identity is the sum total of associations that people have with your organization. And an organization could be a nonprofit, it could be a startup, it could even be an individual. The idea is, what is it when they hear about you? What do they think of? And a strong brand identity is going to have immediate, specific, positive associations. I say brand identity rather than brand. It's a little amorphous because a lot of people, when they talk about brand, are talking about graphical branding. In other words, what your logo is, what the colors are in your event, how your website looks. So this is brand identity. In other words, what it is that is central to what you do that nobody else does and that somebody would be interested in. Okay, so the reason that this is important is manifold. First of all, that the people that you care about, in other words, your potential investors and customers, partners, coworkers, anybody that you're involved with, they need to know who you are and what they're dealing with. I know that sounds, again, obvious, but a lot of people miss the obvious. It helps you stand out from the competition. If you can really define what you do that's different from what other people, then it's going to make you distinctive. Finally, if you have really done it correctly, it will sound professional. And if you sound professional, people think you're professional. Sometimes, for some beginning companies, you have to fake it till you make it. So all that is very fundamental. It is the foundation for all your marketing communications, because if you don't, you can have wonderful videos, and you can have wonderful articles, and you have a wonderful website, you can have wonderful business cards, and you can have all sorts of wonderful things, but if none of them are properly representing your value proposition and why people should be interested, then you're spinning your wheels. So, brand identity has a lot of different aspects. It's really all the touch points. All the touch points are an opportunity for people to get a feeling from your company. And that's everything. It's your website. It's what your website looks like. It's all the marketing communications you put out, your logo, your business cards, speeches. It's even how the phone gets answered, what the person says, and even whether it gets answered. All these things are creating associations for the people that you deal with your company. So it's all important, but we're going to focus here on the core of that, and that's your core message. In other words, defining a single sentence, a few paragraphs on what it is that you do And off of that, you build your marketing communications. So I'll give you some examples. You decided this is a good, bad, or ugly one. That Lorette is an innovative startup engineering company founded in April 2017 with participants, et cetera. It's the residents of the Skolkovo Innovation Center. I think we can all agree we don't know what this company does. I got this, by the way, off of, there was a startup competition a few years ago. And this is their boilerplate. This gives a little more information about their experience and something about sending images from space. So we know they're somewhere in that sector, but it still doesn't tell us what it is they do. And one of a very common problem is that people talk about, they get very excited about things that they're able to do, about their team, and the fact that they're with the Skolkovo Innovation Center. But if nobody knows what that is, and nobody's going to care. So you're just wasting people's time and wasting your own time. Here's another example. This was off a brochure, and it took me a while to figure out what the company did. I looked on the inside front cover, there's no boilerplate in terms of what the company does. So this is the closest I could get. On the back cover, this doesn't tell you what they do. And then they have a second paragraph that still doesn't quite tell you what you do, but I think it has to do with temporary tattoos. And there, if you can see on the, so temporary tattoos is all very nice, but we don't know if it's a machine, if it's decal, is it an at-home service, it doesn't say. So I go to a website. The website, again, doesn't show you. It's got what looks like a cell phone, but I'm not sure what that's for. So there's text here, and the text says, nope, still doesn't tell us what the company does. And then you look at the logo, there's some words of the logo, maybe that's it. Nope, color your way. So I think it's clear that they don't want you to know what they do. It turns out that cell phone is not a cell phone, it is actually a temporary tattoo device, but it's not marked, it's not distinctive as anything other than a cell phone. So this is probably not one of the good examples, one of the ugly examples. Now here's another example. So this is Real View Imaging. It's an Israeli startup company, pioneer in the field of interactive live holography, creating a new dimension for medical imaging applications. I think we can agree, we know what the company does. They're in medical imaging, they do live holography. We know it's a startup, we know it's Israeli. They even get a couple of nice marketing words about a new dimension, pioneering. Very nice. They have a second line, a little deeper dive, and this is telling you much more specifics and a differentiator that's unique. And so potential investors and customers know what they're buying. This is very clear. Now the next example is not a startup, but it's one of the biggest companies in the world, Morgan Stanley. So if you go to the Morgan Stanley website, it's very clean, very straightforward. There's only 5 tabs. One of them is what we do. So you want to know what they do, you click on it. And what does it say? At Morgan Stanley, we advise, originate, trade, manage, and distribute capital for governments, institutions, and individuals, and always do so with a standard of excellence. So they manage to tell you what they do, who they do it for, and you can get a nice superlative in about the way they do business. It's hard to find a pithier statement. You should know that this was not created by the marketing department at Morgan Stanley. This was created by the new CEO 15 minutes before his first internal meeting. And he sat there and he thought, what does the company do? And I'm going to articulate it. He happens to have a very well-ordered mind. He comes out of McKinsey. He's a very smart guy. But he's also not a marketer. He's a businessman. And sometimes that's an advantage, because sometimes in marketing we get carried away with language and trying to sell something to somebody instead of just being very straightforward. This accomplished that. If you have a very strong statement, all your marketing messages can cascade off of that. So for instance, this is the Morgan Stanley Impact Investing website page, and you'll notice that when they say we believe capital can work to benefit all society, capital is the central element in their main message, that they work with capital, and so they're repeating it here. And so all your marketing messages can reinforce your core message. So how do you build a core message? First, keep in mind that core is you're defining and you're differentiating your organization. You have to think about what it is that your business does, who's it doing it for, what sets it apart, how it's going to change things, how it's going to disrupt, any significant factor. You get out a pad, or use a ThinkPad, whatever it is, and write everything that comes to your mind that has to do with your company, and start refining and defining. See where you're seeing patterns, emphases. The next thing you have to do is what I call a 360-degree audit, meaning look all around, both internally at your current materials, at what's being done by competitors, by similar companies. How does the industry talk? Every industry is different, and some industries focus on jargon, some are very formal, some are informal. You have to speak the same language to the people you're talking to. And sometimes as a marketer, when you're moving from one company to another, you have to be a bit of a chameleon to adapt to that language. But always you have to think about what is, and you've heard this before today, what solution or potential are potential investors or customers looking for? What do they need? What are their pain points? How are you going to address that? So now you've taken this huge list and you boil that down to a tagline. There's no magic formula for getting this done. Just something that you work on over time and you try to refine it. You have to describe not just features but also benefits. Features mean this is what you do, but benefits mean this is how it will help somebody else, because that's what they care about. I have a rule I call it 4 C's, which is clear, meaning it's understandable; concise, meaning it's short; compelling, meaning that people want to take action, that they're interested in what you're talking about; and consistent. You've got to apply this across the board. A lot of places, and at our company we suffer from this as well. There's a lot of people saying different things about our company, and it gets a little confusing, so you have to try to rein that in. If you can't explain what you do easily, there's other people will not understand it, but most important, it could be that you don't understand yourself what you do. If you can't explain it, it could be you don't understand it. I had a marketing communication company a while ago, and we had 30 clients over a year and a half. And it was always astonishing to us that the people we were hired to do their marketing communications, we would say, okay, so tell us what you do, and we'll build your platforms and your materials and all that. And they had a hard time explaining it, just like you see in some of these examples. And forcing them to think about what they did was an excellent exercise for them. And sometimes, this happened on 2 different occasions, they actually changed their business plan because they were forced to think about what is it we do, what do we do best. If that isn't the tail wagging the dog, I don't know what it is. But it was just a fascinating exercise, and it showed me the importance of getting brand identity correct. So I'm going to give you, I like to give examples. So I'll give you an example close to home. This is the OurCrowd. We'll use OurCrowd as an example. I have some of my colleagues here today, so I want to give the caveat that it's a very talented team, and they get the credit for the good work that's done. Anything that I've done that they don't like, I'll take blame for. So this was the tagline from a few years ago. OurCrowd is an equity crowdfunding platform for accredited investors only who wish to invest in Israeli and global health technology companies. So this was important because it spoke to our differentiator at the time, which was equity crowdfunding. The fact that we were in Israel, the fact that we work with accredited investors. But over time, focusing on equity crowdfunding didn't work so well for us. It was pigeonholing us because we're a real VC shop. We do due diligence on our companies. We invest alongside our investors. And there are other crowdfunding platforms that don't do that, so we need to differentiate. Our current tagline is, OurCrowd is a global investment platform bringing venture capital opportunities to accredited investors worldwide. It shows that we've grown, it shows that we're a platform, it shows that we're a venture capital shop. So we feel it works much better. It's very important to be willing to evolve your messaging. You can get it right, and you say this is really working, but when the company grows, your marketing communications have to grow. Especially in the startup world, which is very big in Israel, many of you probably work for startups, that's especially important. We have a portfolio company called EdgyBeats, which started out as a drone gaming software, and over time what they found was that their software overlay worked very well for public service organizations around the world, police, firemen, search and rescue. And that became a major part of the business. So they had to grow their message in order to help continue to grow their business. In terms of building the core message, the tagline's not enough. You have to drill down a little bit. A few paragraphs on what your capabilities are, what your differentiators are. There are areas of significance that may be unique to your company. Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's important to get those facts in, and you structure this in a hierarchy. In other words, your most important message is first. And the reason you do that is because, as we all know, people's attention span is short. Nobody cares about your company as much as you do. And so you want to get your most important messages out first, and you do what's in journalism known as pyramiding. And so you can basically cut off from the end. Okay, here's an example from OurCrowd. That's the tagline at the top. The next paragraph gives you a little more detail. We're an active venture capital firm. We're run by John Medved. The next one tells you how we invest in companies. The next one tells you the companies afterwards. And then finally, we have some validating statistics. And so what's important to understand about the exercise I'm talking about here is it's not necessarily the case that you're even going to put this somewhere on your website or whatever. But the effort, the exercise of forcing you to think about these things and think about it in a tiered way, what are the most important messages that we want to get out, helps you in all your marketing. So I'll give you now a more fun example. We put on a conference every year called the Global Investor Summit. And we bring in thousands of VCs and entrepreneurs and investors and multinational corporations from around the world once a year. And we needed to find a way to talk about it in addition to just the name. Why? Because the OurCrowd Global Investor Summit doesn't necessarily tell you what it's about. It's about investors, but not only for investors. And unless you know OurCrowd, you don't know that it's tech, you don't know that it's startups. So we wanted to have some way to, like a slogan basically. So originally we had the most exciting startup event of the year. We thought it was, but the fact is any startup event can say that it's the most exciting startup event of the year. Tried the leading gathering to start a nation. The problem is leading is, a lot of people say leading is a little boring, it's a little amorphous. Startup nation is a term that's starting to get tired. And it's also not just about the startup nation. We have a global ecosystem. Tried drawing the crowd, the global center of innovation. And the crowd speaks to the company brand, which is great, but join the crowd sounds a little frivolous. It's not a business conference. It's also not clear where it is. People in Silicon Valley will tell you that they're the global center of innovation. So we took a step back. So what is our core message? And it's about venture capital. One of the slogans that we have preceded me is a better way to invest in startups. You'll see that on our banners when you go to one of our events. And so we really wanted to focus on startups. So the startup world is here. Problem with that is it's not clear that it's a single event. It sounds like more about geography. And when I look at this, I think of someone at the door saying, "Hey mom, the startup world is here." So I wasn't crazy about that. So and I'm the one who's working on this. So there's a truism in marketing: you always steal from the best. Web Summit, I don't think is a very good event, but it's got great marketing. And their slogan is where the tech world meets. So we tried this, where the startup world gathers. And this seems to work. It's the startup world is the whole ecosystem, gathers, meeting is better than meeting. Meeting feels very businessy, feels one-to-one, gathers as a whole group. It speaks to our brand as a crowd. And it could also be social, not just business, and so that's indeed what we went with for the tagline. Okay, one more piece of advice, which I think is really, really important, which is why I'm ending with it, and that is to avoid the echo chamber. An echo chamber is when you sit in a room, and it's an enclosed room, and you say something, and your voice bounces all around. It's important to listen not just to yourself, but to other people. I know that sounds obvious, but not enough people do it. It's not enough to just look at statistics or comments on something on a social posting. You have to seek out the opinions of other people, and that's everybody. Your employees, your employers, your customers, everybody. You should do it before, during, and after the after the process, really listen to them, don't be defensive. Just to scare you a little bit with a marketing horror story. Okay, so a few years ago, Hershey's decided to rebrand. So they called themselves Hershey, said Hershey's not such a big deal. They used the iconic Hershey kiss in the logo. So here's the problem. A lot of people, some people are ahead of me on this, a lot of people, especially kids, didn't see it as a Hershey's kiss, they saw it as the poop emoji. And so what happened was, as soon as someone talked about this online, everybody was talking about it. That's all anybody talked, even Psychology Today talked about the psychology of making these associations. And so this became the conversation. Instead of the rebranding, it was about how Hershey's is poop. So now you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, you know, it kind of does look like that. It's got the steam coming off. So it turns out that the biggest users of the poop emoji are 11-year-olds, and guess what? One of the biggest key target audience of Hershey's is 11-year-olds. So aside from the fact that they fouled their message with a key target, is that clearly nobody did a focus group with one of their key targets. No one showed the logo to 11-year-olds. The focus group was probably adults. In my first job at Alliance Bernstein, my boss would take everything that she did, never put in the car, and she would go to her next door neighbor, Gladys, who was a school teacher, had nothing to do with the investment business, and she forced Gladys, over a glass of wine probably, to read everything she did and see if she understood it. And if she didn't understand it, Amy said, we're not using it. And it was a tremendous lesson, because as a result, the company's marketing was considered the best on Wall Street because it was very straightforward. Not that it was sophisticated, it was understandable. So that's the importance of getting some input. Just to review, it's very important to have a strong brand identity. It's going to result in the associations that you want with you, whatever it is that you're selling. In order to do that, take stock of all the marketing messages around you, create a core message, a tagline, a few paragraphs that really sum it up, that you can circulate internally. Make sure you're describing features, what you do, but also the benefits, what it is that why people should care about it. And seek other people's opinions, very important.